She carried their child in her arms, whispering lullabies filled with love. She cooked their meals, wiped their tears, and celebrated their joys as if they were her own. But deep inside she carried a secret, a regret that haunted her soul. This is the story of a Muslim nanny, torn between love, duty, and the past she couldn't escape. Stay till the end to witness a journey of redemption that will touch your heart. The first time Amina stepped into the Johnsons' house, her heart beat faster than usual. It wasn't just the size of the place, the tall glass windows, the shining marble floors, or the grand staircase that twisted like a ribbon. It was the feeling of stepping into a life that wasn't hers. She clutched her small bag tightly, filled with nothing more than a change of clothes, a prayer mat, and a photo of her son, Ayan. Amina had left her small village behind, trading familiar dusty roads and the sound of the evening azan for the city's fast pace. She wasn't here because she wanted to be. She was here because she had to be. Her son needed food, school fees, and a future she couldn't give him back home. Mrs. Johnson greeted her with a polite smile. She looked tired, her professional outfit still crisp from a long day at work. "Thank you for coming, Amina," she said softly. "We really need someone we can trust with Lily." Amina nodded, her eyes drifting to the little girl hiding behind her mother's legs. Lily was 4 years old, with wild blonde curls and the kind of shy eyes that peeked out, curious but cautious. She held a stuffed rabbit tightly as if it was her shield from the world. At first Lily didn't speak much. She would watch Amina from a distance as she cooked, cleaned, and quietly organised the house. But children have a way of sensing hearts that are gentle, and soon enough Lily's walls began to fall. It started with small things, a crayon she handed to Amina during colouring time, a giggle when Amina made silly faces, or the soft tug on her sleeve when Lily wanted to be picked up. Amina's heart, already aching from the emptiness left by her own son, found a strange comfort in Lily's presence. Days turned into weeks. Amina learned Lily's favourite songs, the way she liked her sandwiches cut, and how she loved bedtime stories with extra silly voices. In return, Lily began to call out for Amina when she was scared at night, reaching out for her hand instead of her busy parents. But every moment of joy was shadowed by an invisible ache, a quiet voice in Amina's heart whispering, "Your own child needs you too." At night, after the house grew silent and Lily was fast asleep, Amina would sit by her small window. She'd hold Ayan's photo close, tracing his tiny face with her finger. She imagined him sleeping somewhere far away, maybe wondering why his mother wasn't there to kiss him goodnight. Amina had crossed borders to build a better life, but as the days passed, she couldn't help but wonder. Was she building a future for her son at the cost of his present? Little did she know the love growing in her heart for Lily would soon force her to face a painful truth, one that would change everything. The days grew shorter as winter crept in, and with each falling leaf, Amina's heart grew heavier. On the surface, her life seemed full. She cared for Lily like her own, her days busy with laughter, bedtime stories, and tiny hands reaching for hers. But when night fell, the silence became unbearable and the emptiness she carried whispered louder than words ever could. Amina missed Ayan. She remembered the day she left him, his small fingers clutching the hem of her scarf, his innocent eyes filled with questions she couldn't answer. "Mama, when will you come back?" he had asked, his voice soft and unsure. She'd smiled, kissed his forehead and whispered, "Soon, my love." Very soon. But soon had stretched into years, and the distance between them grew wider with every passing day. She sent money home regularly, made phone calls whenever she could, but the sound of Ayan's voice over the phone was never enough. She'd ask, "Did you eat?" Are you doing well in school? Do you miss Mama? But deep down she feared his answers. She feared the day he'd stop missing her altogether. One chilly evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Amina sat alone by the window, her fingers nervously tracing the beads of her tasbih. The city lights outside glimmered like distant stars, but none of them could light up the darkness inside her heart. She stared at Ayan's photo on her nightstand, tears blurring his little face. Suddenly she felt a small tug on her sleeve. Lily stood there in her pink pyjamas, her stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand. "Amina, why are you crying?" she whispered, her eyes filled with concern. Amina quickly wiped her tears, forcing a smile. "I'm not crying, sweetheart, just thinking." Lily climbed onto her lap, resting her head against Amina's chest. "Are you thinking about someone you love?" That simple question pierced deeper than any wound. Amina's voice trembled as she replied, "Yes, someone I love very much." Lily looked up with her innocent eyes. "I love you too, Amina. Maybe that can help." Amina hugged her tightly, feeling the warmth of Lily's small heart against her own. But instead of comfort, it brought more pain. She loved Lily deeply, but this love was tangled with guilt. How could she pour her heart into another child while her own son was growing up without her? The guilt became a shadow, following her everywhere. When Lily laughed, Amina thought of Ayan's laughter she no longer heard. When Lily called out for her in the night, she wondered who Ayan called for when he was scared. Her heart was split between two worlds, one she had built out of necessity, and one she had left behind out of desperation. And no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, the regret grew heavier with each passing day. She had made sacrifices for Ayan's future, but was it worth the cost of missing his present? Amina didn't have the answer, not yet. But the weight of that question was about to force her to make a choice she never thought she'd face. Winter deepened, painting the city in shades of grey. The cold wasn't just outside, it crept into Amina's heart, settling like frost on memories she tried hard to bury. Life in the Johnsons' home carried on as usual. Amina woke early, prepared breakfast, braided Lily's golden curls, and tucked her into bed with bedtime stories filled with magic and wonder. But behind her gentle smile was a storm brewing, a storm she could no longer ignore. One evening, as snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, Amina's phone rang. She recognized the number instantly. It was from home. Her heart raced as she answered, her fingers trembling. Her sister's voice came through, shaky and filled with worry. "Amina, Mom is very sick. She's in the hospital. It's bad. And Ayan, he's scared. He keeps asking for you." For a moment the world went silent. Amina couldn't breathe. She clutched the phone, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The image of her mother, frail and struggling, flashed in her mind. And Ayan, her sweet boy, alone, frightened, needing his mother. After the call ended, Amina sat frozen. The walls around her felt like they were closing in. She stared at her reflection in the dark window, seeing a woman torn in half. One part bound by love for a child who wasn't hers, the other drowning in guilt for the child she'd left behind. She knew what she had to do, but knowing didn't make it any easier. That night, as she tucked Lily into bed, her hands trembled. Lily looked up, sensing something was wrong. "Amina, why do your eyes look sad?" she asked softly, her small fingers reaching out to touch Amina's cheek. Amina forced a smile, but her voice wavered. "I just miss someone very much." "Is it your little boy? The one in the picture on your table?" Lily whispered. She'd noticed more than Amina thought. Amina nodded, tears threatening to spill. She sat beside Lily, brushing her hair gently. "His name is Ayan. He's about your age, and right now he needs me more than ever." Lily's face crumpled, her eyes filling with tears. "Are you going to leave me?" Her voice was a fragile whisper, filled with fear. Amina's heart broke. She gathered Lily in her arms, holding her tightly. "I love you so much, my little star, but sometimes love means doing what's right, even when it hurts." She kissed Lily's forehead, trying to memorize the feel of her soft skin, the warmth of her tiny arms around her neck. The next day, Amina told the Johnsons. Mrs. Johnson's eyes welled with tears, her voice shaky. "But Amina, you're part of our family. Lily loves you. We love you." Amina's own heart felt like it was shattering. "I love you all too, but my son, he's my heart. I left him to give him a better life, but I realize now, no job, no money can replace a mother's presence. He needs me more than anything." There were no easy words, no comforting phrases to soften the goodbye. Amina packed her things with trembling hands, folding not just clothes but years of memories, laughter and love. When it was time to leave, Lily clung to her, sobbing. "Please don't go, Amina, please." Amina knelt, her tears flowing freely. "You'll always be in my heart, Lily, but Arjan, he's waiting for me. Just like you'd want your mommy if she were far away." With a final kiss, Amina turned and walked away, leaving behind a part of her soul. But in her heart she knew. She was walking towards something she could never replace. She was going home. The day of Amina's departure felt heavier than any other. The sky was overcast, mirroring the grey cloud that settled over her heart. She stood by the door of the Johnsons' home, her small suitcase beside her, packed with more memories than belongings. Each corner of the house whispered stories of bedtime lullabies, first steps, and quiet, heartfelt moments with Lily. This wasn't just a job she was leaving, it was a piece of her heart. Mrs. Johnson stood silently, tears brimming in her eyes. She tried to speak, but could only manage a soft, "Thank you, Amina," before her voice cracked. Mr. Johnson, usually composed and distant, reached out, shaking Amina's hand firmly, his eyes betraying the emotion he tried to hide. But it was Lily who broke her completely. She came running down the stairs, her little face flushed, her stuffed rabbit clutched tightly in her arms. "Amina, don't go! Please don't go!" she cried, her sobs filling the room. She threw herself into Amina's arms, her tiny fingers gripping her scarf as if letting go would make her disappear. Amina's knees buckled as she knelt to Lily's level, her tears finally falling freely. She cupped Lily's face gently, her voice trembling. "Oh, my little star, I love you more than words can say." She pressed her forehead against Lily's, closing her eyes to memorize the warmth, the softness, the scent of her hair. "Then why are you leaving me?" Lily's voice was a fragile whisper filled with confusion and heartbreak. Amina took a shaky breath. "Because my son needs me, just like you needed me when your mommy and daddy were busy. I stayed because I loved you, and now I'm leaving because I love him. But that doesn't mean I'll stop loving you. You'll always be in my heart, no matter where I go." Lily reached into her small pocket and pulled out a crumpled drawing, a simple picture of her and Amina holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "Take this," she whispered, "so you don't forget me." Amina held the drawing to her chest, her heart aching with both love and sorrow. "I could never forget you, Lily. You're part of me now." As she stood to leave, she felt the weight of every goodbye she'd ever given, but none had been this hard. She walked out the door, each step heavier than the last. She didn't look back, not because she didn't want to, but because she knew if she did, she might not find the strength to leave. At the airport, surrounded by strangers, Amina sat quietly, holding Lily's drawing in one hand and her son's photo in the other. Her heart was torn between two worlds, but for the first time in years, she felt a sense of clarity. She had given her heart to a child who wasn't hers, and now she was returning to the child who was. As the plane took off, tears rolled down her cheeks, not just tears of sadness, but of gratitude. She had loved deeply, lost painfully, and learned that sometimes the hardest goodbyes are the ones that teach us the true meaning of love. She wasn't just going back, she was going home, to heal, to reconnect, and to find redemption in the arms of the boy she had missed more than words could ever say. The plane touched down with a soft jolt, but Amina's heart felt like it had been in free fall the entire journey. The landscape outside the window was both familiar and foreign, a mixture of dusty roads, old brick houses, and narrow alleyways woven with memories she had tucked away. She stepped off the plane, the warm breeze carrying scents of home, spices, earth, and the faint aroma of freshly baked bread from a nearby stall. But none of it comforted her because her heart was fixed on one thing, Ayaan. The ride from the airport to her mother's house felt longer than the years she had been gone. Her fingers trembled as she clutched her small bag, filled with gifts she'd carefully chosen for Ayaan, hoping they could somehow make up for lost time. But deep down, she knew no gift could fill the space her absence had left. When she finally arrived, the house looked smaller than she remembered. The walls were cracked in places. The paint faded, but it was still home. She stepped out of the car, her heart pounding like a drum. As she approached the door, it creaked open, and there he stood, Ayaan. He was taller than she had pictured in her mind, his face older, marked with the faint shadows of a boy growing up too fast. His big brown eyes met hers, filled not with the excitement she had hoped for, but with something heavier, confusion, hesitation, and a question that needed no words. "Why did you leave me?" Amina's throat tightened. She dropped her bag and rushed to him, falling to her knees so she could look him in the eye. "Ayaan," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. She reached out, but he didn't move. He just stood there, his small fists clenched by his sides. Tears blurred her vision as she spoke, her words spilling out like a confession. "I'm so sorry, my son. I thought I was doing the right thing. I wanted to give you a better life, to provide for you. But I was wrong. Nothing I did out there could ever replace what you needed the most, me. I should have been here. I should have never left you." Silence hung between them, heavy and suffocating. Then slowly, Ayaan's expression softened. His little lips quivered, and tears welled in his eyes. Without a word, he took a shaky step forward, then another until he finally threw himself into her arms, sobbing. Amina held him tightly, her tears soaking into his hair. It was as if she was trying to squeeze years of missed hugs into that single embrace. She kissed the top of his head over and over, whispering, "I'm here now. I'm never leaving again." That night, Amina tucked Ayaan into bed for the first time in years. She whispered the same Quranic verses she had once recited for Lily, but this time her heart was at peace. She didn't have to imagine her son sleeping miles away, wondering if his mother still loved him. He was right there, his small hand clutching hers as he drifted off to sleep. In the following days, Amina slowly rebuilt her life, not with grand gestures, but with small everyday moments. Making breakfast together, helping Ayaan with his schoolwork, walking hand in hand to the market. Each moment was a stitch in the fabric of their healing, a quiet redemption woven through love, patience, and presence. She still thought about Lily, often pulling out the crumpled drawing tucked safely in her bag. A bittersweet smile would touch her lips, but there was no longer a heavy ache. Amina had learned that love didn't diminish when shared, it grew. And while part of her heart remained with Lily, her soul had found its way back home. Amina's story wasn't one of perfection, but of growth, of mistakes made, lessons learned, and the courage it took to return to the people who mattered most. Because in the end, love isn't just about who you hold close. It's about having the strength to come back when you've been gone too long. Sometimes the hardest journeys lead us back to where we truly belong.